All right, so get ready because we are diving deep into the mind of an emperor today.
Oh, this is going to be good.
We are cracking open Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not just some, dusty old text, right?
Mm.
This is a raw, what I think is so fascinating about it, a surprisingly relatable journal.
Yeah.
Imagine leading an entire empire,
Right.
battling barbarians, dealing with family trauma, like all the things,
Right.
and then still finding time to jot down your thoughts on like how to find inner peace.
Yeah.
That's Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah. And, it's fascinating because Meditations wasn't actually meant for us.
Right.
It wasn't like, some big philosophical treatise for the masses.
Right.
These were his private reflections, like
Ah.
almost overhearing him kind of wrestling with his own anxieties and searching for wisdom in the middle of all this chaos.
It's giving very Dear Diary, Today I Conquered Gaul vibes.
Totally.
But on a serious note, why should we even care about this emperor's, personal journal?
Yeah.
What makes his thoughts relevant to, say, someone who's like stuck in traffic listening to this right now?
Well,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
think about it, right?
Yeah.
The challenges that Aurelius faced as emperor, the pressure of leadership, the weight of all that responsibility, this constant threat of conflict and war and everything else. These are things that a lot of us grapple with on a daily basis in our own lives, Maybe not on the scale of an empire,
Right.
but these sort of like the human experience of dealing with pressure, with responsibility,
Right.
with like the crazy things that the world throws at you and trying to find a sense of peace
Yeah.
in the middle of all that, that really resonates, I think, across the centuries.
So it's not about like literally conquering empires. It's about conquering those battles that we all face like internally.
Exactly. Yeah. And he did this all through the lens of Stoicism.
Okay, Stoicism. So not exactly like a, trending topic these days, but
Not necessarily.
I'm willing to hear you out.
Yeah.
So give me the like elevator pitch. What is Stoicism?
Imagine if you had this superpower, right?
Okay.
Where you could only focus on the things that you could control, so your thoughts, your own actions,
Mm-hmm.
and then you could just completely let go of everything else,
Okay.
right? External events, what other people are saying about you, doing
Yeah.
all that stuff that is outside your sphere of influence. Stoicism says just like acknowledge that that's not in your control
Okay.
and find freedom in focusing on your own inner world.
Okay, I can see how that would come in handy, like when you're leading an empire.
Right.
But how does that translate to like modern day anxieties?
Yeah.
Like stressing over a work deadline
Sure.
or, that awkward text you sent and you wish you could take back.
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
So, well, let's take that deadline, for example, right?
Okay.
Stoicism would say, okay, so can you control the amount of work that you have?
Yeah.
Probably. Can you control how much effort you put in, how focused you are? Absolutely, right? Can you control whether or not your boss decides to, like, drop another project on your plate at the last minute?
Probably not.
Probably not. So
Okay.
Stoicism says focus your energy on the things that you can influence
Right.
and just try to let go of that other stuff.
So it's about choosing where you direct your energy. It's kind of like a mental Marie Kondo.
It is. It is.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, accepting everything sounds a bit passive,
Sure.
Like, didn't Aurelius also believe in taking action,
Yeah.
living virtuously?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Stoicism is not about just sitting back and, letting life happen to you.
Right.
It's about recognizing that some things are just beyond your control,
Okay.
but within your sphere of influence,
Mm-hmm.
you should absolutely strive to act with virtue, to do what is right, to do what is just, and to do what is in accordance with nature.
Okay, hold on. In accordance with nature, that sounds a little bit vague.
Yeah.
Like, what did they even mean by nature back then?
Well, it's a really big concept.
Sure.
And it can be interpreted in many ways. But for the Stoics,
Mm-hmm.
this idea of nature really encompassed both human nature and the rational order of the universe.
Okay.
So it's about understanding your place in the grand scheme of things, understanding that we are all interconnected,
Right.
and that we should be acting in a way that promotes harmony and virtue.
It sounds a bit lofty, but I kind of like it.
It is a bit lofty, yeah.
So how did this Stoic emperor actually put these ideas into practice?
Yeah.
Did he just like walk around the Colosseum spouting like philosophical one-liners while everyone was battling it out down below?
I mean, that would have been pretty cool.
Right.
But no, he wasn't just some passive observer.
Oh, yeah.
He led Rome through wars, famines,
Wow.
even a devastating plague.
Okay.
But what's really cool is that Meditations actually shows us how he used these principles to actually navigate those really, really tough situations.
So, okay, let's talk specifics because
Yeah.
I am dying to know what kinds of things did he actually write about in his journal?
So one of the recurring themes in Meditations is this really deep sense of duty.
Okay.
He wasn't interested in power just for the sake of power. He saw his role as emperor as a responsibility, a chance to serve the empire, to serve the people.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
But he also had this reputation for being like incredibly wise
Yeah,
and introspective.
totally.
So surely his journal entries were not just about like administrative duties.
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay.
Meditations is full of these really beautiful reflections on life, on death, on the pursuit of virtue.
Right.
He talks about things like the fleeting nature of fame, how quickly fortune can change.
Mm-hmm.
He grapples with the challenges of dealing with difficult people, something that I think we can all relate to.
Oh, for sure.
And he even finds a lot of solace in just contemplating the vastness of the universe.
Wow. So it's like he was having an existential crisis like centuries before it was trendy.
He was ahead of his time, for sure.
Okay. I like that he was ahead of his time.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked a lot about Stoicism in general, but what are some of the like specific nuggets of wisdom
Yeah.
that jump out at you from Meditations itself?
Yeah.
Like, what are the things that make you go, wow, this emperor really gets it?
One passage that really struck me was his reflection on death.
Okay.
And death wasn't this like morbid, fear-inducing thing for him. He actually saw it as a natural part of life, like something to be accepted rather than dreaded.
Okay.
He even writes at one point that worrying about death is kind of like worrying about whether or not the universe will still exist after you're gone,
Right.
which is just kind of pointless.
Yeah, it puts things in perspective.
Right.
So he's basically telling us to chill out and enjoy the ride.
In a way, yes.
Okay.
He really believed that dwelling on death just distracts us from actually living a good life,
Right.
from living virtuously in the here and now. And remember, he's writing this while facing all sorts of really imminent dangers,
Yeah.
I think there's a really powerful lesson in that for us.
Right. Like stop stressing about like the hypotheticals and focus on what you can actually do today.
Exact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, Aurelius wasn't some like saintly figure who just floated through life without struggles. Right.
Of course not.
He was a human being.
Yeah.
He had flaws. He had anxieties.
Yeah.
I bet his family drove him crazy sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what makes meditation so relatable,
Totally.
He doesn't shy away from his own struggles.
Right.
He even complains about his son, Commodus, who ended up being a pretty terrible emperor himself
Oh, no, that's rough.
and kind of undid a lot of his father's good work.
Classic case of dad just doesn't understand.
Yeah,
But doesn't that humanize him even more?
I think so.
Like, he's not this perfect, untouchable figure, right? He's just a guy dealing with real-life problems, just like us.
Exactly. And he even talks about how he had to constantly remind himself of these Stoic principles, that he
Right.
struggled with anger, with frustration, just like anyone else.
Right.
So it's like a continuous practice,
Right.
It's not just like a destination that you arrive at.
So even an emperor had bad days.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
And had to work on finding that inner peace.
absolutely.
Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better about my own struggles.
We've all been there.
But we've got to talk about one of the most intriguing parts of Aurelius's story,
Okay.
which is this legend of the Thundering Legion.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a story that kind of intertwines military might with maybe a little bit of divine intervention.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, tell me more.
So the story goes that during this really, really fierce battle against the Quadi,
Oh, okay.
Roman soldiers were trapped and they were like facing defeat.
Oh.
And then out of nowhere,
Yeah.
this massive thunderstorm erupts,
Right.
bringing rain that saves the Roman troops who are like parched and dying of thirst, and even, according to some accounts, starts hurling lightning bolts at the enemy.
It's like something out of a movie.
I know, right?
So dramatic. It's a great story.
But what's the connection to Christianity?
So legend has it
Mm-hmm.
that Christian soldiers who were part of this legion
Okay.
were praying for divine intervention,
Okay.
and that those prayers led to this miraculous storm.
Wow.
Whether it was truly a miracle or just some really well-timed weather,
Right.
we don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But the story really took hold,
Right.
and it had a huge impact on the early Christian community.
So it's a reminder that even in ancient Rome,
Yeah.
like faith and spirituality were playing a really complex role in people's lives.
They were a big deal. Yeah.
But where did Aurelius stand on Christianity?
Yeah.
Was he a believer? A skeptic?
Yeah, that's where things get a little bit murky.
Okay.
So while he was definitely known for championing religious tolerance in general,
Mm-hmm.
there is evidence that suggests that he allowed the persecution of Christians.
During his reign.
So maybe it was due to political pressures or because he saw them as a threat to, like, Roman unity.
Could be,
So it's a really complicated part of his legacy.
It is.
And I guess it's a reminder that even the most enlightened figures,
Yeah,
can be products of their time.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It adds another layer to the whole story, right?
Right? Cool.
This philosopher king wrestling with, not just his own demons, but also the complexities of leading like a diverse and sometimes very turbulent empire.
It's true.
You know what? I'm starting to think that we could all use a little bit of Marcus Aurelius in our lives.
I think so too.
So where do we go from here?
Well, I think a good place to start would be to look at some of the specific challenges
Okay.
that Aurelius faced
Okay.
and how he used those Stoic principles to navigate them.
Yeah.
And maybe we can find some parallels to our own lives and, learn a thing or two
Right.
about how to find some peace in the middle of all the chaos.
All right. So let's dive into the nitty-gritty of meditations, shall we?
Let's do it.
What were some of the key struggles that Aurelius faced?
Yeah.
And what advice did he offer for overcoming them?
I think one that everyone can relate to is just dealing with difficult people.
Oh, yeah.
Aurelius had a lot of those in his life.
Right. I mean, from troublesome senators to his own son, right?
Yeah, especially his son.
Yeah. So what was his advice for dealing with these situations?
Well, it might actually surprise you.
Okay.
He encouraged people to remember that everyone, even those who annoy us the most,
Mm-hmm.
are really just doing the best that they can
Okay.
with the understanding and the resources that they have.
Okay.
And he even suggests that we should try to see their flaws as opportunities for us to practice patience and understanding.
Wait, so instead of getting like angry at that coworker
Right.
who like always steals your lunch from the fridge,
Right.
I'm supposed to feel sorry for them.
It's not necessarily about condoning bad behavior
Okay.
or becoming a doormat,
Right.
but it is about choosing to respond with compassion rather than anger,
Okay.
because their actions most likely stem from their own, internal struggles and
Okay.
insecurities.
Okay, that's a little easier to swallow.
Yeah.
But how do you actually like put that into practice
Mm-hmm.
when you're dealing with, like, say, a micromanaging boss?
Right.
Or a friend who's being passive aggressive?
Yeah. Aurelius actually suggests a few techniques that sound surprisingly modern.
Oh, okay.
One is to just try to see things from their perspective.
Okay.
What might be going on in their life
Right.
that is contributing to their behavior.
Okay.
Are they under a lot of pressure? Are they dealing with some personal stuff that you don't know about?
Right.
Or are they simply just lacking the skills to communicate effectively?
Okay, so it's like putting on your empathy hat
Yeah.
and trying to understand their motivations, even if their actions are still, like, frustrating.
Exactly.
Okay, but what if someone is truly being, like, malicious, intentionally trying to hurt you?
Yeah.
Does Stoicism have an answer for that, too?
It does.
Okay.
Aurelius would say that even in those situations, you still have control over your own response.
Right.
You can choose to meet anger with anger and just keep escalating that conflict.
Yep.
Or you can choose to remain calm, set boundaries and not let their negativity poison your own inner peace.
So it's about choosing your battles wisely
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing that sometimes the most powerful response is just to walk away.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But didn't Aurelius also have some thoughts on how we handle our own emotions?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He really emphasized the importance of controlling your own thoughts, your reactions.
That's so true.
Yeah.
We've all had those moments where we let our thoughts just spiral out of control.
Right, totally.
Yeah.
And Aurelius offers a really powerful antidote to that.
Okay.
He reminds us that we have the power to choose how we interpret events.
Right.
We can choose to view challenges as opportunities to learn and grow, or we can let them just completely drag us down.
Okay.
It's all about perspective.
So what are some practical strategies that he recommended for, like, mastering our thoughts and emotions? Because sometimes it feels like those negative thoughts just have a mind of their own.
Yeah, they do.
Right.
One thing that he advocated for a lot was focusing on the present moment.
Okay.
He really believed that dwelling on the past or worrying about the future just like amplifies anxiety.
Makes sense.
So instead, he urged his readers and himself to pay attention to what's happening right now. Appreciate the simple things in life. Find the beauty in everyday moments.
So is he like basically a mindfulness guru in a toga?
He might have been, yeah.
Okay, I like that.
He was definitely ahead of his time.
Right.
Yeah. And he even suggests some really specific exercises, like taking a few moments each day to just observe your breath or to notice the sensations in your body.
Right.
He believed that cultivating this awareness of the present moment could really help us to break free from those negative thought loops that just keep us, stuck in the past.
Right, the what-ifs and the should-haves.
Exactly.
So it's about training your mind to focus on what's, like, real and tangible.
Yes.
Instead of getting lost in that stuff. But didn't he also talk about the importance of gratitude?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Aurelius believed that practicing gratitude was essential for cultivating contentment and inner peace.
Right.
So he suggested that we take time each day to reflect on the things that we're grateful for, even in the middle of difficult times.
So instead of complaining about that traffic jam on the way to work, I should be grateful that I even have a car to be stuck in traffic in.
I mean, there you go.
Okay.
It's about reframing our thinking, finding the good, even in situations that are challenging.
Yeah.
He believed that shifting our focus to what we have rather than what we lack can really change our whole outlook.
Okay, that makes sense. But Stoicism was also about using, like, reason and logic to navigate life's challenges, right?
Totally.
Did Aurelius talk about that too?
He did a lot. He was a huge believer in the power of reason and logic to guide our actions and help us make good decisions.
Okay.
So he encouraged his readers to question their assumptions, to challenge their negative thoughts, and to base their actions on sound judgment rather than just, emotional impulses.
So it's not about suppressing your emotions altogether.
No.
It's about using reason to understand them and manage them.
Exactly. He's reminding us that we are rational beings, capable of making choices that align with our values.
So how do we, put that into practice? Like, give me some concrete examples.
Let's say you're feeling overwhelmed by a problem at work.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of just letting your emotions run wild, just take a step back and ask yourself, what are the facts of the situation? What are the potential solutions here?
Okay.
What is the most logical and reasonable way to approach this?
So, take a deep breath, put on your thinking cap, approach the problem strategically.
Exactly.
Rather than just reacting emotionally.
It's like being your own therapist, but with a Stoic twist.
I like it. Okay.
Yeah.
And Aurelius himself admitted that he struggled with, anger, frustration, even self-doubt sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So he saw meditations as a tool to work through these challenges.
Yeah, like his own personal self-help book.
Right.
To keep reminding himself to stay on track.
So even the philosopher king needed to remind himself of his own wisdom.
I think we all do.
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of reassuring.
It is.
Okay, so enough about controlling our emotions. What about those external things that we all kind of crave?
Right.
Like fame, fortune, recognition, all that. Did all that power and status go to his head?
It's really interesting because actually it didn't.
Okay.
He had a remarkably detached view of fame and fortune. Really.
He saw them as fleeting and ultimately meaningless.
That's easier said than done.
Oh, I know.
Especially in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with messages about success and achievement and all that.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
But Aurelius believed that true fulfillment came from living virtuously, not from seeking external validation.
Well, it's not about denying yourself those things entirely.
Right.
It's about putting them in perspective.
Right.
And not letting them define your worth or your happiness.
Exactly. He's reminding us that true happiness comes from within.
Okay.
From living in accordance with our values.
Right.
And pursuing a life of virtue.
Right.
Regardless of what the outside world is saying or doing.
Okay, that's pretty profound, but how do we actually apply that?
Yeah.
in our daily lives,
Well, think about how you make decisions.
Okay.
Are you driven by a desire for recognition from other people? Or are you motivated by doing what you believe is right,
Yeah.
even if nobody else notices?
Right.
It's about aligning your actions with your values,
Right.
rather than seeking that external approval.
So focus on the process, not just the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Finding satisfaction in just doing the right thing,
Yeah.
regardless of the external rewards.
Exactly. And it takes practice.
Sure.
But he says that the rewards are worth it.
All right. Aurelius has given us a lot to think about here.
He has.
He's challenging us to control our emotions, focus on the present moment,
Yeah.
find fulfillment in living virtuously. But I have a feeling this is just the tip of the iceberg. Right?
We're just getting started.
All right. So let's dive even deeper into this ancient wisdom and see what else we can learn from this emperor philosopher.
Getting excited.
Okay. So we've established Marcus Aurelius was not just, some Stoic statue in a toga.
Right.
He was a real person with real problems, searching for wisdom in a really chaotic world.
Yeah, absolutely.
But did he ever acknowledge that sometimes life just throws you a curveball? That sometimes things are just truly awful and unfair.
Oh, absolutely. He did.
Yeah.
I mean, he lived through some pretty horrific events, wars, plagues, personal betrayals.
Right.
And he doesn't shy away from that in Meditations.
So how did he reconcile that with his whole focus on what you can control philosophy?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it feels like there's nothing you can control.
Right. Well, he believed that even in the face of tragedy and loss, we still have a choice.
Okay.
We have the choice of how we respond to those things.
Right.
We can choose to let them break us.
Right.
Or we can choose to find meaning and growth in those experiences.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
It is. It is.
How do you find meaning in, say, like the death of a loved one? Or a really devastating illness?
It's not about pretending that those things aren't awful.
Right.
It's really about recognizing that even in those dark moments, we still have the power to choose our attitude.
Right.
To choose how we're going to think about that. To focus on what we can learn from that experience.
Yeah.
And to find ways to move forward with resilience.
So it's like finding that inner strength, even when the world feels like it's falling apart around you.
Exactly. Yeah.
I could see how that would have been so helpful for Aurelius, leading an empire through constant turmoil and all that.
Right.
But how does that apply to, say, someone going through a divorce or losing their job? Like, those are still pretty devastating life events, even if they're not, on the scale of an empire crumbling.
Of course. Yeah. And it's about recognizing that those events, while they're painful, they don't have to define you.
Okay.
They don't have to dictate your happiness or your future.
Right.
You still have the power to choose how you move forward from that, to rebuild your life.
Right.
To find new sources of meaning and purpose.
So it's about taking back that sense of agency, even when you feel like you've lost control. I like that.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, wasn't there a bit of a contradiction in Aurelius' own life?
Okay.
He preached acceptance and detachment, but he was also a powerful emperor who waged wars and expanded the Roman Empire.
Right.
Doesn't that seem a little hypocritical?
It's a really good question.
Yeah.
And it's one that scholars have debated for centuries.
Right.
Some argue that his actions definitely contradicted his philosophy,
Right.
while others believe that he saw his role as emperor as like a duty, a way to bring order and stability to the world, even if it required force.
So he was trying to create a more just and virtuous world, even if it meant, making some tough decisions along the way.
That's one interpretation. And I think it's important to remember that we're looking at his life through a very modern lens.
Right.
The concept of a just war was very different back then.
Yeah.
And the Roman Empire, it was built on military expansion.
Right.
So it's complicated.
They complicate it.
To say the least.
It definitely challenges our modern sensibilities.
Or it does.
But let's move on to something a little less morally ambiguous, shall we? Let's talk about his thoughts on fame and fortune.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who had it all, right?
He did.
Power, wealth, prestige, all that. Did he see that as like the ultimate goal?
Yeah.
The key to happiness?
Surprisingly, no.
Yeah.
He actually had a pretty cynical view of fame and fortune.
Interesting.
He saw them as fleeting and ultimately meaningless.
Okay.
He writes about how quickly those things can disappear.
Right.
how fickle public opinion can be,
Right.
and how chasing after those external rewards can actually distract you from what truly matters.
So what did he see as the true source of happiness and fulfillment?
He believed that true happiness came from living a virtuous life,
Okay.
from cultivating things like wisdom, justice, courage, temperance.
Okay, so these are like the core virtues, right?
Exactly, yeah. And he saw them as the foundation of a good life.
Right.
Something that no amount of wealth or fame could ever replace.
So it's about focusing on those inner qualities, those
Mhm.
character traits that make you a good person, regardless of your external circumstances.
Exactly.
But wasn't there also a spiritual side to his philosophy?
Yeah,
Didn't he believe in some kind of higher power?
he did. Or
Yeah.
cosmic order. Yes, he did. He saw the universe as this rational and ordered place,
Okay.
governed by a divine force that he referred to as logos.
Logo.
And he believed that living in accordance with this cosmic order was the path to virtue and happiness.
So it's about aligning yourself with that bigger picture,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that you're part of something larger than yourself.
Yes.
But did he ever talk about, like, how to connect with that higher power?
Mm-hmm.
Did he have any spiritual practices or rituals or anything like that?
He doesn't really go into detail about specific practices,
Okay.
but he does emphasize the importance of contemplation and reflection. He believed that spending time in nature, observing the stars, reflecting on like the wonders of the universe, that those things could help us connect with that sense of awe and wonder.
So it's like finding that spiritual connection through nature,
Mm-hmm.
through appreciating the beauty and complexity of the world around us.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he saw that as a path to virtue.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying that connecting with something bigger than yourself can actually make you a better person.
Right. But he also believed in the importance of finding meaning and purpose in serving something greater than yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
But how do you find that sense of purpose in a world that often feels so chaotic and meaningless?
Well, he would say that purpose can be found in the everyday acts of living virtuously.
Okay.
So in being kind to others, pursuing knowledge, contributing to your community, and just basically doing the best that you can with whatever tasks are set before you.
So it's not about finding, like, some grand overarching mission.
Right.
It's about finding those small moments of meaning in your daily life, right?
Yeah.
In those everyday actions that reflect your values.
Exactly.
That feels very grounded and attainable.
And it's a good reminder that even though the world often feels chaotic and unpredictable,
Yeah.
we still have the power to choose how we respond to that, to find meaning and purpose in our actions,
Right.
and to live a life that reflects what we believe in.
So we've covered a lot of ground here,
We have.
from dealing with difficult people to, like, finding purpose in a chaotic world.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling there's still so much more to uncover in meditations.
Oh, there is.
What are some other nuggets of wisdom that you think are worth highlighting?
You know, one thing that really struck me was his emphasis on the interconnectedness of all things.
Okay.
He believed that we're all part of this larger web of life,
Mm-hmm.
that our actions have ripple effects, and that we have a responsibility to treat each other with kindness and compassion.
That feels especially relevant today
Mm.
when we're facing so many global challenges that require us to, like, work together.
Totally.
Yeah.
He's reminding us that we're not just isolated individuals, but that we're part of this larger community.
Right.
And that our well-being is interconnected with the well-being of everyone else.
So it's about recognizing that sense of shared humanity,
Mm-hmm.
even in a world that often feels so divided.
Right.
But didn't Aurelius also have some really interesting thoughts about, like, time,
Yeah.
how we should use it wisely?
He did. He was very aware of the fleeting nature of time
Right.
and the importance of making the most of each moment.
Right.
And so he encouraged his readers to live each day as if it were their last.
Okay.
Not in like a morbid sense.
Right. Not like, go skydiving today because you might die tomorrow.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
But in a way that inspires us to appreciate the preciousness of life
Right.
and to focus on what truly matters.
Okay, so I'm getting some serious carpe diem vibes here.
Yeah, a little bit.
But I also hear, like, a message about letting go of, like, the petty worries and anxieties.
Absolutely. He believed that worrying about things we can't control is a huge waste of time and energy.
Right.
So instead, he said, focus on what you can influence,
Right.
act with virtue, and find joy in those simple things.
It's about simplifying our lives,
Mhm.
focusing on what truly matters,
Yeah,
and making the most of the time that we have.
exactly.
That's a message that resonates, especially in, like, our fast-paced, hyper-connected world.
It does, yeah.
Right.
And it's a reminder that even though Meditations was written almost 2,000 years ago,
Yeah.
the wisdom that it contains is still so powerful and so relevant to our lives today.
So after, diving deep into Meditations, what are your, key takeaways?
Yeah.
What are the things that you think our listeners should really hold on to?
I think for me, it's really about the power of focusing on our inner world,
Okay.
recognizing that true happiness and fulfillment come not from external things, but from our own thoughts, actions, and choices.
It's about cultivating that inner peace and strength, that resilience that allows you to face whatever life throws at you.
Yeah, and it's about finding meaning and purpose in living a good life, in serving something larger than ourselves,
Right.
and in connecting with that sense of awe and wonder that comes from recognizing our place in the grand scheme of things.
He was quite the overachiever, wasn't he?
He was.
Emperor and philosopher.
I know I can barely keep up with my email inbox,
I know, right?
let alone contemplate the meaning of life.
Yeah, so that's why I think Meditations is such a gift, right?
Mm-hmm.
It offers us these bite-sized pieces of wisdom
Yeah.
that we can actually integrate into our busy lives.
Mm-hmm.
Even just a few minutes of reflection each day
Totally.
can make a difference.
I think so.
So what's the one thing that you want our listeners to ponder
Yeah.
after they finish this deep dive?
Mm-hmm.
What's that final nugget of Aurelius's wisdom
Okay.
that you think is really worth chewing on?
While Stoicism emphasizes rational control, Aurelius also expresses these moments of doubt. He even criticizes the gods at some points, which suggests that even the wisest individuals wrestle with the complexities and uncertainties of life.
Okay.
So embrace the uncertainty. Don't be afraid to question and explore and find your own path.
I like that. I like that a lot. So, we've talked a lot about Aurelius's, serious side, but I have to say I'm really charmed by his dry wit.
Oh, yeah.
It's sprinkled throughout Meditations.
Yeah.
These little moments of snark that make him feel so relatable.
Yeah, it's true. He wasn't all, doom and gloom pronouncements. You get these glimpses of humor, and it's almost like he's winking at us across the centuries.
Right.
Saying, yeah, I get it. Life's a bit absurd sometimes.
Exactly. Like that line about how humans love to complain,
Yeah.
but the very things they run headlong into,
Right.
like crowds at a festival or,
Totally.
it's like he's watching us repeat the same patterns over and over again, just shaking his head with a smirk.
Yeah, there's a self-awareness there too, right? Recognizing that we're all these flawed creatures, prone to making the same mistakes even when we know better.
Mm-hmm.
And that ability to laugh at ourselves and the absurdity of it all, I think that's a sign of true wisdom.
Okay, but let's bring it back to the practical.
Sure.
One of the things I keep coming back to in Meditations is Aurelius's advice on dealing with difficult people.
Yeah, it's so good.
He really had a knack for breaking down these complex human interactions into these really bite-sized pieces of wisdom.
He did, and his approach is so different from the, fight or flight mentality that we often see today.
Right.
He encourages us to see those difficult people as opportunities for growth, for practicing patience, for developing our own character.
I can hear our listeners now, easier said than done, Aurelius.
Right.
But I think there's something to be said for choosing how you respond to those situations.
Yeah.
It's about taking back that sense of control.
Absolutely.
Even when someone is pushing your buttons.
Yeah, he reminds us that we can't control other people's actions,
Right.
but we can control our own thoughts and reactions.
Right.
And sometimes the most powerful response is to just refuse to let their negativity drag you down with them.
It's like rising above the fray, right? Choosing to focus on your own inner peace rather than getting sucked into all that drama.
Totally. But what about setting boundaries?
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Because sometimes it feels like you have to stand up for yourself,
Yeah.
even if it means causing some friction. Aurelius believed in setting boundaries, but doing it in a way that was calm and rational and in line with your values.
Okay.
He wasn't advocating for being a pushover,
Right.
but he was saying that we should respond to those difficult situations with wisdom and composure
Right.
rather than anger and aggression.
So it's about choosing your battles wisely,
Mm-hmm.
right? And picking your response carefully.
Yeah. Sometimes a firm but respectful conversation is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Other times it's better to just disengage and walk away.
Exactly. And it's about remembering that even in those difficult interactions, you still have a choice in how you respond.
Yeah.
You can choose to let their actions dictate your emotions.
Right.
Or you can choose to maintain your own, inner equilibrium.
It's like that old saying, you can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails.
I like that Aurelius would definitely approve.
I think so. Okay.
No, but I'm curious, did he offer any specific advice for dealing with, like, those really toxic people?
Okay.
The ones who just seem intent on spreading misery wherever they go?
Yeah, the energy vampires.
Right.
He advised his readers to just avoid those people as much as possible.
Okay.
To limit your exposure to their negativity.
Right.
He also suggested trying to understand the root of their behavior.
Okay.
To see their actions as stemming from their own pain and unhappiness rather than taking it personally.
It's about having compassion, even for those who are difficult to love, but also recognizing that sometimes the best way to protect your own well-being is to, like, distance yourself from those people.
I think so. It's about prioritizing your own mental and emotional health.
Right.
And recognizing that you don't have to subject yourself to that kind of toxic behavior.
It's amazing how relevant Aurelius' advice still feels today.
I know.
It's like he had this deep understanding of human nature that transcends, like, time and culture.
He did. And he reminds us that even though the world has changed in countless ways since his time,
Right.
the challenges we face as human beings are remarkably similar.
Yeah.
We all struggle with difficult people. We all search for meaning and purpose. We all grapple with the big questions of life and death.
And Meditations offers us this roadmap, right? This set of principles that can help us navigate those challenges with, like, wisdom and resilience.
Exactly. It's a reminder that even though life can be really tough,
Yeah.
we're not alone in our struggles.
Right.
And that even in the midst of chaos and uncertainty, there's still beauty to be found, wisdom to be gained, and meaning to be created.
I think that's a beautiful note to end on.
It is.
We've journeyed through the mind of an emperor, explored his philosophical insights, and discovered that even across centuries, his words still hold this really profound meaning for us today.
I think so.
So what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this deep dive?
Okay.
What's that final nugget of wisdom that you hope will stick with them long after they finish listening?
I think Aurelius would want us to remember that the path to a good life isn't about achieving some huge goal or acquiring a bunch of possessions. It's about cultivating those inner qualities like wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance that allow us to navigate life's challenges with grace, resilience, and a sense of purpose.
Beautifully said. And as Aurelius himself might say, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. One.
Love it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Marcus Aurelius and Meditations.